for today's discussion, we are talking about Joe Biden, who has now written a second executive order saying abortion is really, really good. And he'd like to have abortion be spread across the United States. And there's some issues with this potential executive order because it seems to fly in the face of various law. But let's go ahead and read this article from CNN and then discuss the actual executive order. So Biden has signed a new executive order on abortion rights, saying women's health and lives are on the line. Well, I can think of other entities' health and lives that might also be on the line when it comes to abortion, but okay. Also, you're saying women's health and lives are on the line. First, I thought men could get pregnant too. Second, do you know what a woman is? Because if you do, I'd like to know. There seems to be some confusion on this point. Anyways, President Joe Biden on Wednesday signed an executive order to help ensure access to abortion in light of the Supreme Court's decision earlier this summer to eliminate the constitutional right to the procedure. The president has said the order helps women travel out of state to receive abortions, ensure healthcare providers comply with federal law so women aren't delayed in getting care, and advances research and data collection to evaluate the impact that this reproductive health crisis is having on maternal health and other health considerations and outcomes. Reproductive health crisis, the euphemisms we choose. Biden spoke of the chaos and uncertainty that has ensued in the wake of the Supreme Court decision and said women's health and lives are on the line. Emergency medical care being denied to women experiencing miscarriages. Doctors uncertain about what they can do to provide for their patients. Pharmacists unsure whether they can fill prescriptions they've always filled before there's been a change in law. A tragic case of our survivors, including a 10-year-old girl forced to travel to another state for care, Biden said before signing the order. You know, I don't really like these arguments when they try to make the extreme case work for the general case. This is one of the things I find a little bit disingenuous about pro-choice arguments. Because they'll say, well, okay, how about the extreme case? How about the case of an R survivor? How about the case of a 10-year-old? Now, even if you concede that point, they think that means that therefore all abortions should be allowed, which doesn't flow, right? The ordinary case proves the extraordinary case, but not the other way around, right? If you have an ordinary case, what's true in the ordinary case will be true in the extraordinary case, but not the other way around. That's what makes it extraordinary. But they try to use these extreme examples and say, okay, well, all right, do you want to just legalize those extreme examples? No, we want to legalize all the abortions. Okay, then why are you talking about the extreme examples? They're not really your argument. Right? It's a disingenuous line of argument, and I really dislike it. The order comes a day after Kansas voters handed abortion rights advocates a massive victory and defeated a measure that would have allowed the GOP legislature to impose new restrictions. It was a vote Biden celebrated at the White House. Well, they might still be able to kill the babies in Kansas. I guess you're thrilled. In a decisive victory, voters have made it clear that the politicians should not interfere with fundamental rights of women. It's not a fundamental right. The Supreme Court just told you that if you were paying attention. And the voters of Kansas send a powerful signal that this fall the American people will vote to preserve and protect the right and refuse to let it be ripped away by the politicians. Yes, we won't let the right be ripped away because we're too busy trying to rip something else away. And my administration has their back. Biden signed the executive order during the inaugural meeting of the administration's recently established task force on reproductive health care access, what a euphemism, which comprised of representatives from multiple departments across the federal government. Cabinet members briefed the president on steps their respective agencies have taken to defend reproductive rights. The order directs Health and Human Services to consider all applicable actions to ensure healthcare providers comply with federal non-discrimination laws so women receive medically necessary care without delay. If it's truly medically necessary, then we'll talk. Including steps to provide healthcare providers with technical and legal guidance amid a patchwork of state legal restrictions on abortions following the Supreme Court decision. I'm not sure why the federal government is in a particular position to give legal guidance as to state law, but okay. Last month, CNN reported that doctors have struggled to navigate Byzantine guidance as states across the country pass increasingly strict abortion restrictions, with experts warning of an enormous chilling effect on doctors performing miscarriage surgeries even where doctors are confident that what they're doing is within the letter of the law. Well, like everyone else, you have to comply by the law. If you don't comply by the law, you're going to have problems. Ignorance of the law is no excuse, as we've all learned many, many times. Wednesday's order also directs HHS to consider actions guaranteeing women traveling across state lines seeking abortions have access to health care services, including through Medicare. Last month, a bill guaranteeing women the right to travel across state lines to seek abortions failed to pass the Senate after Republicans blocked the measure. According to the senior administration official, that would allow states to provide care for out-of-state patients seeking abortions through a Medicaid waiver, permitting states to waive certain state-based requirements in providing care and assist in covering certain costs. The federal government is assisting in covering costs. The executive order further directs HHS to expand research efforts on maternal health data to accurately measure the impact that diminishing access to reproductive health care services has on women's health. What euphemisms, man. How disingenuous. Pressed Wednesday on how the president's executive order on reproductive care avoids running afoul of the Hyde Amendment. Oh yeah, there's that thing, which says we can't use federal money to fund abortion. White House press secretary said the Department of Health and Human Services will come up with details on specifics of how they're going to work with states to provide care via Medicare waivers. So we're going to figure out how to do it, despite the fact we can't. Quote, so as you know, Medicare provides comprehensive health care to women with low incomes. This care includes family planning services such as contraception, non-emergency medical, transportation, and support services like targeted care management, which allows healthcare providers to help patients coordinate their care. And it also includes abortion care in certain circumstances, as accepted by the Hyde Amendment, which includes the R word, incest, and life of the mother. So I think they're going to try to squeeze as much life out of that they can, and I use that phraseology very deliberately. She added, the Hyde Amendment is law, and we're going to abide by the law. I'm dubious. Wednesday's executive order is the second one signed by Biden. It sure is. Let's go ahead and go read the executive order now that we've read a news article about the executive order. Here's a copy of the executive order, which says the following things. On July the 8th of 2022, following a decision by the Supreme Court to overrule Roe v. Wade, I signed an executive order protecting healthcare. You sure did. As that order recognized, eliminating the right recognized in Roe has had and will continue to have devastating implications for women's health and public health more broadly. Does it, though? Following that order, the Department of Health and Human Services has taken critical steps to address those effects. These steps include clarifying the obligation of hospitals and providers under the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act to provide patients presenting in an emergency department with emergency medical conditions stabilizing care, including an abortion, if that care is necessary to stabilize the emergency medical condition, and issuing guidance to nation's retail pharmacists on their obligations under civil rights laws, including the Rehabilitation Act and the Affordable Care Act, to ensure equal access to comprehensive reproductive and other health care services, including for women who are experiencing miscarriages. However, the continued advancement of restrictive abortion laws in states across the country has created legal uncertainty and disparate access to reproductive health services depending on where a person lives, putting patients, providers, and third parties at risks. There's one third party in particular that has a particular interest in these laws I'd like to take note. And fueling confusion for hospitals and healthcare providers, including pharmacies. There have been numerous providers of women denied health and life-saving emergency care, as providers fearful of legal reprisal delay necessary treatment for patients until their condition worsens to dangerous levels. There are also reports of women of reproductive age being denied prescription medications at pharmacies, including medication that's used to treat stomach ulcers, lupus, arthritis, and cancer, due to concerns that these medications, some of which can be used in medicated abortions, could be used to terminate a pregnancy. Reportedly, a healthcare provider, citing a state law restricting abortion, even temporarily stopped providing emergency contraception. As it remains the policy of my administration to support women's access to tearing the life out of their wombs, what it says is to reproductive health care services, including their ability to travel to seek abortion care in states where it's legal. I'm directing my administration to take further action to protect access to reproductive health services and to address the crisis facing women's health and public health more broadly, as women might actually now have to think about the life that is growing inside them, and that life now has an interest that's protected by law, which is really, really bad. Definition. The term reproductive health services means medical, surgical, counseling, or referral services relating to human reproductive systems, including services relating to pregnancy or termination of pregnancy. So healthcare includes the abortion. Great. That's interesting. In furtherance of the policy set forth in Section 1 of the order, the Secretary of HHS shall consider actions to advance access to reproductive health care services, including, to the extent permitted by federal law, through Medicaid for patients traveling across state lines for medical care. How about that Hyde Amendment, though? In furtherance of the policy set forth in Section 1 of this order, and to ensure individuals are not denied health care on the basis of any ground protected by federal law, including current pregnancy, past pregnancy, potential or intended pregnancy, or other medical conditions, the Secretary of HHS shall consider all appropriate action to advance the prompt understanding of and compliance with federal non-discrimination laws by healthcare providers that receive federal financial assistance. Such actions may include, okay, so here's the things we're apparently going to try to do. Providing technical assistance for healthcare providers that have questions concerning their obligations under federal non-discrimination laws. How can you skate the law? That would be what that is. Convening healthcare providers to provide information on their obligations under federal non-discrimination law and the potential compliances and non-compliance. So we're going to sue you. Issuing additional guidance or taking other actions appropriate in response to any complaints or other reports of non-compliant with federal discrimination law. The Secretary of HHS shall evaluate the adequacy of research, data collection, and data analysis and interpretive efforts of the National Institute of Health, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and other relevant HHS components in accurately measuring the effect of access to reproductive health care on maternal health outcomes and other health outcomes. I know Fauci isn't there very much longer, but maybe we'll get Fauci in on this. Who knows? Following that evaluation, the Secretary shall take appropriate action to improve those efforts. And then, of course, nothing in this is to otherwise supplant any other executive order or to provide any individual remedy. Thus, that brings us to our end of the discussion of both the CNN article and this executive order, in which case the Biden administration is looking to use Medicare funds, which are federal funds, in a way to help abortions without actually running afoul of the Hyde Amendment. So yes, they're going to continue to do this, and then a new administration is going to come in and revoke it all. But yeah, that's where we're at in all these things. So tearing it from limb. And at least for a moment, that brings us to the end of discussion of this article. Thank you so much for being part of the Uncivil Law family. If you enjoyed this legal education content, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. We appreciate your continuing support. Until later, my friends, cheers and goodbye.